Hello, welcome back to the Pattern Core Sports Show. Now, it has been a while since I've uploaded on this channel. I think it's maybe September time when I did an interview in German with Katarina Delista, but that doesn't matter. We're here now with the man himself, Combat Sports UK journalist, Pat Danna. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good today, Pat McCory. How are we doing? It's been a little bit since we've done one of these, huh?
I think we did one for your channel for Cejudo versus Sterling. I
Yep,
think
back
that's
in May.
back in May. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was a good one. But so for those that maybe didn't read the title on the YouTube video, the concept I want to go through Bellator's 2023. We will get on to the PFL purchase of Bellator, but first we got to talk about the amazing year Bellator has had because I think they've really had a standout year. So they've had a lot of events this year, but starting off the year, we had Bellator 290. It was Ryan Bader knocking out Fedor in the first round, which was quite a tough watch, I'll be honest. But it was really cool to see all the legends then come into the cage and see off Fedor, right? And then Eblen dominated Tokov, who was Fedor's prodigy. So that was a really rough night for Team Fedor, but
Very
that
much.
was a good event. I thought there was some good fights on the undercard on that as well. Yeah, what do you think of how Bellator dealt with Fedor's retirement?
I think they did a really good job, honestly. I remember it being one of the bigger stories in MMA at the time, and I remember him getting a very nice send off, if I remember correctly. A lot of people were there to cover it, a lot of big journalists. And I remember it going about as good as it could go, apart from the actual fight.
Yeah. I think we all expected that outcome though, right? Because the first
Yeah.
fight happened a very similar way,
Yeah.
and it was kind of like just this impending doom feeling. It was like I can't remember Fedor having any success at all, sadly.
Yeah, no, he didn't. It was very quick and very upsetting, to be honest. It was a
It was
rough
a
way
tough
for
one.
Fedor to go out, but at the same time, I feel like everything that happened after kind of sweetened the mood a little bit.
It's been a year of retirements, but a lot of the retirements have turned out good in the UFC with Robbie Lawler. Obviously, Glover Teixeira's fight didn't really go his way, but it was an awesome fight with Jamal Hill.
Yeah.
There are a couple others now. My mind's gone blank, but then I don't know. Do you have any more notes on Bellator 290 on that card? Do you have any other standout moments from that card?
No, I mean, Eblin just looked really good. He solidified himself as one of the better
Mhm.
middleweights in MMA and continued to do so throughout the year, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Bellator 291. Amasov defeats Logan Storley by 50-45 unanimous decision all across the scorecards. It was a complete domination after Storley had upset the London crowd by dominating MVP. I mean, is there much we can talk about on this fight? It was a very dominant performance. It was a comeback fight for Amosov, obviously coming back from the Ukraine. Um, yeah. Do you have any other notes on that fight? I think it was just
Amosov
very good
basically,
performance.
I mean, it was the rematch and he just made the right adjustments. I mean, he really just like the first fight was a split decision win for him.
Mhm.
I remember he won the
It was a
fight, but
very
it was
close fight,
close.
the first
Yeah, it
one.
was close. And he just he left no doubt the second time. He made sure he went in there with the right adjustments and knew how to beat Logan Storley, which is very impressive for a champion. You got to know how to make those adjustments. It shows a champion.
Mhm. And Logan Storley is damn good as well. He looked so
Hell
good
yeah.
against MVP.
Yep.
And when I was looking at that fight on paper on the build up, Storley beats MVP dominantly, hurt him on the feet, I believe.
Yep.
I was like, Storley makes the right adjustments. He could definitely win this. And after about halfway through the second round, I was like, am I a good journalist? I was like really reconsidering my MMA knowledge because I mean it was a dominant one for Amosov.
Yeah, no, it really was. It really was. And also Jenna Bishop made her debut on that
Yes.
card. And that was a very solid debut for Jenna Bishop. She's now a top ranked uh featherweight in Bellator? Featherweight.
Yeah.
Yes.
And on the next card, Bellator 292. Obviously, we'll get onto the Usman Nurmagomedov drama later on, but Usman Nurmagomedov defeats Benson Henderson via first round submission. That is another MMA retirement we had this year. Benson Henderson, one of my favorites of all time, legend. I mean, that fight, Umar, or not, sorry, not Umar. Usman opens up with a beautiful question mark kick. I mean, chef's kiss. I just wish he didn't slip on it. If he didn't slip on
If
it,
he didn't slip, it would have looked a lot cleaner, yeah.
and then submits Benson Henderson, who is like not many people can finish Benson Henderson. I mean, Anthony Pettis jumped off a cage and kicked him in the face, and he didn't finish him.
He
You know,
couldn't knock him out yet.
so I mean, what a legend Benson is. I think I could
Oh
do a
yeah.
whole 2-hour podcast on how amazing Benson is, but we got to talk about Usman Nurmagomedov because I do think beyond the suspension that he has now, like he is one of the best lightweights in MMA.
Hell yeah. No argument to that. He is one of the best lightweights in MMA. It's more just now the questions around him with the suspension, with the positive test. You know, if he actually was taking steroids, if he's going to be the same fighter now without them. There's going to be some questions there that need to be answered, and I think, we might be able to see that against some of the PFL's lightweights. PFL has some legit lightweights, even though OAM is going to retire against like Clay Collard and guys like that. Like we'll see how he stands against guys
Shane
like that.
Burgos.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we'll get onto the PFL purchase and everything a bit later, but like, yeah, I mean, those first 3 events of the year kind of set the tone for what the year went on to become, right? Then Bellator 294. Now I'm going off title fights, by the way. I know there were some fights in between Musasi Edwards and some other ones, but I'm going strictly off title fights because
Got you.
so Liz Carmouche, who had an amazing year this year,
Yeah,
defeats Bennett via 4th round submission. I mean,
she was losing that fight.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
a very impressive submission.
Hmm.
Carmouche is one that has always impressed me, and I've always felt has kind of been underrated. You know, because
Yes.
the Bellator's women's divisions, everyone just sees it as Cyborg, right?
Hmm.
Everyone sees Cyborg, and Cyborg is amazing, but I think Carmouche is one of the better female fighters in MMA in
Yeah.
general, not
Yeah,
just in
she
Bellator.
has been for a long time too.
She had, yeah, exactly. Her resume, I was looking at it earlier. It was like she's got some good names. She was in the
Oh,
UFC. Like she's got some good names. I think she is a very, very talented fighter, and she's coming into her own with this championship belt.
yeah, no, most definitely. Like she is really one of the more underrated girls in MMA, and she, like I said, has been for most of her career. And I actually had the chance to talk to her like cage side at Bellator 301 in Chicago.
Yeah,
And she's just one of the nicest people too. Like
yeah,
she
she is.
really is an amazing person, and like it's just crazy that she hasn't been able to get like the respect she deserves throughout her career, honestly.
I think slowly people are starting to realize how good she is, but I
It
think
took a 5-6 fight win streak.
I just wish Bellator would be seen more on a bigger platform because
Mhm.
they have so many fighters that are just so good and so underrated that you don't see in the mainstream. Maybe they didn't have a good UFC career or they left the UFC. I think another guy like that is Corey Anderson. He leaves the
Yeah.
UFC, nearly beats Nemkov before a no contest. I believe it was a clash of heads.
Yes.
Then overlooks Nemkov and gets beaten. But Corey Anderson is very good. There's a lot of guys like that who have kind of Ryan Bader, who have kind
Yeah.
of
Yes.
revitalized themselves and
Well,
turned
they'll be
themselves
in the
into,
spotlight more now with this PFL deal, so we'll see if that ends up,
yeah,
helping out their careers and stuff.
100%. Then Bellator 295, I think it's a fighter that everyone kind of loves. I think
Mhm.
a lot of journalists have been high on him for a while, and then the mainstream kind of got to see really what Patchy Mix is about. He knocked out Rafael Stotts with an incredible knee in round one. What was it,
Yeah.
a minute and 20 seconds into the fight?
It was quick. It was quick.
Rafael Stotts as well is an amazing fighter, and that was proven again when he beat Sabatello.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we'll get on to Patchy Mix. I think I could do another 2-hour podcast on how incredible he is because I mean that knockout. I remember I was watching it. I was lying in bed. I was about to go to bed. I was like, I'm gonna watch Patchy Mix versus Rafael Stotts. Then I'll go to bed, thinking that's 25 minutes. I thought it was gonna maybe go the distance. He knocks him out in 40 seconds
Yeah.
to a minute. I got an early night, so it was a perfect night for me.
Yeah, no, Patchy became the only other person to beat Rafi other than Rob. And he
Yeah,
did it, and he did it in a fairly similar way. I mean, it was a flash knockout within just a couple seconds. So, I mean,
100%, man. And I
Rafian's very legit.
yeah, I gotta wonder if how much Patchy and Merab kind of broke down Rafion in the build-up. They are training partners. I wonder,
Yeah.
did Patchy kind of go to Merab for a bit of advice? How did you set this up? Where do you look for the strike? Obviously, Merab's fight didn't last long, but you got to think he had the value of having Matt Serra and Ray Longo break Rafion starts down.
Yeah.
So, and then have the quick knockout, like how much experience Merab does have with that, then I would say probably brought a lot in for Patchy Mix then.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I saw how much Patchy and Marab were training for the Sergio fight. I can only imagine how much they were training together for the
Oh,
Rafian
yeah.
fight when they had the common opponent there together. I can they probably were in that gym together every single day going over how to beat Rafian. So it's not surprising when you see it, but it really is. Like just the way it happened is crazy.
It is like, I mean, Patchy might be the best bantamweight in MMA right now.
Could be.
You got Sean O'Malley as the champion in the UFC,
Hmm.
Aljamain Sterling, Merab Dvalishvili, Corey Sandhagen. If it weren't for the UFC Austin fight, I would have thrown Rob Font as one of the most underrated guys. That was a tough loss to Figueiredo.
Yeah.
You got Cheeto, you got Cejudo. There's just so many guys that are so amazing at bantamweight. And Patchy's another one. Sergio's another one too, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Sergio's great.
there's so many. Bantamweight might be the best division in MMA right now across the board.
Yeah.
Um, and Patchy, man, I don't know where he goes from here, but we'll get onto that once we talk about the PFL purchase and stuff, man.
Mhm.
But going on to the next one, it was Bellator 297. Speaking of Sergio Pettis, dominates the Bellator GOAT in Patricio Pitbull. 49-46 and 250-45s. Talk to me about that one, man.
I mean, everyone thought Pitbull was gonna win, I'm pretty sure. Right? I mean, he was the bigger guy. I know he was dropping down, and a lot of people were a little bit scared about how the weight cut might affect him, but he looked okay.
It looked
And
good.
he looked fine in the lead up. He looked fine at weigh-ins. He looked all right. And a lot of people were just, Patricio's in the game more. He's like, more of a vet. He has more skills. He has more ways to win. And none of it happened. Sergio just shut him down. And
Yeah.
Pitbull did not look like Pitbull. And then, you know, Pitbull then went to Ryzen and got KO'd by a guy that Pitbull wouldn't have been KO'd by. So it kind of shows that he's not the same anymore. But that's not to take away from Sergio's performance at
No,
all.
not at
Because
all.
Pitbull is still a champ, and a lot of people were picking against Sergio in that fight. It really proved how good Sergio is, to be
Oh,
honest. Because he was
100%.
he was a flyweight. He was a flyweight. I mean, Pitbull beat Chandler, who's a lightweight. So Pitbull was beating guys like Chandler, who are beating top lightweights in the UFC, and Sergio was a
100%.
flyweight who was able to just shut him
Beat
down,
Brandon Moreno in the
and he
UFC. I
hurt
think
him.
that's one that's forgotten. He beat up
Hmm.
Brandon Moreno.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, both guys, man, they have such great resumes, and they're kind of at a point in their career where Sergio reached his peak at that point of the peak of his powers, kind of his prime. And I would say even with the Patchy Mix loss, he's still in his prime. I think he's been very good over his last few fights. Patricio Pitbull maybe slightly on the downfall, but he's been on top of the sport for so long. Like, you can only be on top of the sport for so long. With all
Yeah, it's
due
a cruel
respect,
sport. It's a cruel
Patricio.
sport.
I mean, he's his resume. I could go through it and just be like, I would honestly, even just looking at the names again, man, he's got a crazy resume. To beat Pitbull like that after seeing the way Pitbull has fought against, as you said, Michael Chandler and a lot of fighters,
Mhm.
but we've never seen that happen to Pitbull.
Yeah. No, never. He got shut down for 5 rounds straight. Just had
Um,
really, really no answer.
Yeah, I mean, McKean finished him in the first round quick, but
Yeah.
that was a domination from
Mhm.
Sergio.
Yeah.
A- And also on that card was Vadim Nenkov
Yep.
defeating Yoel Romero. It was the most Yoel Romero title fight performance of all time, right? I
Lost
love
most of the
Yoel.
fight. Dropped him.
I love Yoel a lot, and he's always going to be a guy that I'm going to put on the TV. Someone asked me, "What's MMA?" I'll probably show them Yoel Romero highlights.
Okay.
So he's a guy, man, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether it's the pressure of the moment or he just doesn't care. I think maybe he's just having fun, you know. But it's like you look at the Polizzi fight, you look at the Manov fight, and then you see him taking on Vadim Nenkov. He looked completely different. Or maybe that's
Yeah,
just a testament to how good Vadim Nenkov is.
I want to say it's a testament to how good Nemkov is. But you're right. It seems like in title fights, he does kind of freeze up and he just isn't the same fighter that he is. I mean, I think it might have something to do with his cardio. We know Yoel's cardio isn't great, right?
Mm,
So when he's preparing for 5 round fights, he might feel the need to have to save more energy. And it just might completely change his fighting style. And just that might be what it is in a 5 round fight, sadly.
yeah.
I don't
No,
know though.
100%. 100%, man. Bellator 299. Johnny Eblen knocks out Fabian Edwards in round 3 in Dublin. Johnny Eblen again cements himself as one of the top middleweights in the world. He's up there with the Israel Adesanyas and the Sean Stricklands of the world, right?
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. I'd say he definitely fits into the top 6 of the middleweight division, 7 of the middleweight division in the UFC,
Yeah.
like almost guaranteed. And he definitely competes with the best guys. I can't say he beats them though. Like I don't know if he 100% beats them, but he
No,
competes with
yeah. I mean, Fabian Edwards is good. It was a guy that, I watched him fight in Milan. He fought Charlie Ward. I
them.
wasn't impressed by that fight. It wasn't a good performance. Um, and I was like, this is a guy that's going to be fighting for a title soon, potentially. Number 2 fighting Charlie Ward. I was a bit like, that's the guy you should knock out if you're going to fight for the title, with all due respect to Charlie Ward. Um, and then dominates Gegard Mousasi,
That was a
right?
great performance. I mean, I
That
was
was an amazing
shocked.
performance.
I was shocked.
And so he 100% earned the title shot.
Mhm.
But Johnny Eblen is just incredible.
Just
Fabian put
caught
up a
him.
good fight early, but then got got knocked out, man. It was a brutal knockout, I believe. He knocked him down and battered him with elbows. So
Yep. He caught him bad on the feet too. Like that was a beautiful left hook by Johnny, and then he just followed him up and he put him cold.
100%, 100%. Bellator 300, you were at this event.
Yes, I was.
Liz Carmouche defeats McFarlane by TKO in round 5. Talk to me about, again, we talked about Liz Carmouche before, but just how amazing is she, man?
I mean, the first 2 rounds, okay? The fear for a bunch of people going into the fight is because they were friends, that it might be kind of like a sparring match, right? For the first 2 rounds, it kind of was a little slow and it kind of was a little And then one of them landed a big punch in the second round, and I think both of them woke up after that. And rounds 3 and 4 were like good, high paced, and Liz was chopping her down. Liz was chopping down those legs, man, and you could tell Lima was hurt. I think she got hurt in the first round, but you could tell like she was just chopping her down and chopping her down and chopping her down. And that TKO came out of nowhere. Like even though Lima's leg was battered, no one was expecting it because she just kept getting up and kept getting up and kept getting up. And then it was like just the very start of the 5th round, and the fight was just done. Done.
Mm.
It was like the 5th round. It's like the 5th round didn't even happen. So it was pretty strange, but it was pretty cool. The entire card was you know, it,
It
it
was
was a it
phenomenal,
was
man.
it's a big event. It was a fun event.
Chris Cyborg TKO's Kat Zingano in round 1. Again, Chris Cyborg cementing herself. I know I've used that word a lot in this video so far, but I think it very much applies. She's one of the greatest female fighters of all time, and it's not talked about enough.
Okay.
I mean, like Chris Cyborg is incredible.
I mean, you could say she's the greatest female fighter of all time.
You
I
can,
mean,
you can.
I do think the win that Nunes has over her probably gives it to Nunes, but there's
Yeah.
definitely there's people that make the argument for Cyborg, and there is an argument for Cyborg, and if you have her as the goat, I mean, that's fine, especially because she just beat another girl that Nunes had beat. I mean, Nunes had lost to, which was Kat Zingano. So that's another big win, and she walked through Kat. I mean, I know they were both a bit older now, but I mean, Kat had nothing for her. Kat looked
Mhm.
literally scared by the time she got into that cage. It was a very uninspiring performance from Kat, and Cyborg just mauled her, man.
Run through her
Mauled.
like she does to so many women.
Yeah.
Also on that card, Usman Nurmagomedov defeats Brent Primus via unanimous decision, but as we are going to discuss now, overturned to a no contest. Nurmagomedov tests positive for a banned substance. Now, I don't know if you saw, Usman Nurmagomedov has commented on it, and he said it was a supplement that he was taking. He's been taking for a while. He didn't submit it to VADA, I believe it was, and it popped, and now he's suspended. He wasn't stripped of his title because of the manner that it was kind of done when when you're taking a substance that or a supplement that you have been taking for a while, and all of a sudden a banned substance pops up, and it is a bit shocking. So he wasn't stripped, but he is suspended for 6 months.
I mean, if that's what it is, then he shouldn't be facing as much criticism as he was. But I don't know. It's going to be tough because everyone already has the labels on them as steroid cheats and that they're like secretly cheating and that they're this. I mean, even Benoit Saint Denis came out like yesterday or today and was accusing Islam and them of using steroids. So I mean, they're never going to lose the label at this point. So I mean,
That's a testament to how good they are, though.
yeah, but I will say that drastically hurt them though. Usman's positive test drastically hurt their
It's,
image in
it's
the
always
eyes
going
of
to
a
put
lot
a
of
little
people.
asterisk next to the Nurmagomedov name now, which is
Yeah,
really unfortunate because it is an
very,
amazing family.
very unfortunate. And I mean, all I hope is that it was actually, just a mistake, and that Usman is the same fighter, and that he comes back and just keeps doing exactly what he was doing before
Because he is damn
the
good.
positive test. Yeah, yeah, he is. He really is.
And now, so Usman Nurmagomedov is no longer in the lightweight Grand Prix due to the suspension. Uh, I believe it's Brent Primus going to the final now, though.
I have no idea if that Grand Prix is even going to continue.
Could be, which I feel bad for Shabili for. He's kind of
Yeah, I
been
feel
screwed here.
horrible for him because he looked great on this next card that we'll talk about. But
Yeah,
I mean, he looks so good, and it's just going to be a shame if he doesn't get a chance to potentially fight for a title. But even if, like, does anyone really want to see Shabli versus Primus again? That's the one thing that, like, Shabli
I
knocked
think
him
that's
out.
why they're kind of like, do we have to have a final to the Grand Prix? Let's just have Usman and Shabili fight in 6 months.
They, I mean, they could do that, or they could, maybe even just throw a curveball and say, "Hey, we'll have AJ McKee and Shabley fight." You know what I mean? Like something
Yeah.
like that. I feel like that's even more interesting. You know what I mean? Because they have AJ McKee. They've been improperly marketing him for years now. So maybe actually put him in a fight that matters at some point because
100%, man.
he should have had a trilogy with Pitbull, didn't, and he hasn't been in a fight that's really mattered in years, which is like
Yeah.
crazy.
And Bellator 301, you were just saying about Shabili's masterclass performance. I think this lightweight division is such an interesting spot as well with the PFL buyout with Clay Collard, with Shane Burgos, um, names are slipping out of my head, Nathan Schultz.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's so many guys there. Um, like, what if, as you said, they might throw a curveball in, right?
Yeah,
What if they throw Clay Collard in, right? He just was a finalist against Olivier Aubin Mercier. Mercier is retired. I would say throw Clay Collard in there, right? He
they
beat
could
Shane Burgos.
100% do that.
I think he's got more of a shout for it than Shane Burgos does,
Yeah.
if you look at the head-to-head matchup.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. I'd say that'd be an interesting fight too, to say the least.
But Clay Collard
I'd
would
favor
bring the dog
Shabley,
out of
but
anyone.
yeah, he'd bring the exactly. He literally brings the dog out of anyone. So that's the best part about Clay Collard fights. It's going to be a fun fight.
It's going to be a banger. Those are ones that you invite your friends around for.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, on that card, we just spoke about him. Maybe the best bantamweight in the world, Patchy Mix, defeats Sergio Pettis via submission. Like, as I said before, I could do a 2-hour podcast on how great Patchy Mix is. He's been a guy that's worked his way up slowly but surely, kind of under the radar, submitting James Gallagher in Dublin. That's not easy to do. James Gallagher is a very good fighter. Um,
And in his hometown.
yeah. And then also choked out Magomedov, knocked out Stotts. I mean, he has a shout for fighter of the year. If you go from December to December, he
Yeah.
chokes out uh, Magomedov, he knocks out Rafael Stotts, and he chokes out Sergio Pettis. Those
Mhm.
are three of the top bantamweights, right? Those are three of the top five bantamweights. The other one being Juan Archuleta,
Yeah.
who was Patchy Mix's only loss. And to me, that is the logical next fight, um, because PFL doesn't have a bantamweight division for Patchy
Mhm.
to fight in.
Mhm.
So I think when you look at the steel, Patchy's probably like, hey, guys, who am I going to fight? I'm going to fight the same guys. It doesn't affect Patchy Mix unless
Yeah.
Bellator decides to start up a bantamweight division, which I would find very interesting.
Mhm.
But then they'd have to build that around Patchy Mix being the champion, I think.
Yeah.
But Juan
Yeah. I would
Archuleta
say
has
so.
been loving life in Japan. I think that's the logical next fight. What do you think?
I would agree. I would say that the next fight for both of those guys is Mix. I think Archuleta actually might be booked now. He might be booked for a fight.
Archuleta's fighting on New
Yeah.
Year's Eve, yeah.
Yes, yes, he is booked. But the next fight for him after that fight would be to come back, fight Patchy Mix. Whoever wins that fight would have their bantamweight title. Maybe they defend it against another Bellator bantamweight that's around or something, or maybe the PFL signs a big name bantamweight to fight Patchy Mix. Maybe, let's say, something crazy happens and Rob Font no longer in the UFC. He signs with the PFL. They offer him a big deal. Rob Font versus Patchy Mix. You know what I mean?
Great
Big fight
fight.
like that. Exactly. So
They have
something.
they have trained together though. They have trained together at the PI.
It was just a name.
No,
It
no, I
wasn't. It doesn't
no, I
have
get
to
your
be him.
sentiment. I like showing my knowledge of social media watching.
Mhm.
So
No, 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 of course, no, that's fine. So no, but I think that would be the logical next step is that Patchy and Archuleta fight, and then the winner of that. I think that PFL absorbs Bellator after 2024, so I think they'll want
yeah.
Patchy as their bantamweight champion for 2025, and I think that that's how he'll be promoted probably.
So before we talk about the PFL bio, we have one more fight to talk about. It's the biggest upset of the year. Um, well, Jackson's coach doesn't like it being called that, but Jackson knocks out Amazov. I mean, oh man, what a knockout! Shocked everyone,
Yeah,
except for Jackson and his team. Didn't shock them. I think
yeah,
that's always how it goes. You get the big upset. The team's prepared for that, right?
yeah.
So he catches Amazov with a perfect shot. What do you have to say about that fight? I believe you were there as well. So,
I was. He
uh,
he
talk
dominated
to me about that
Amosov.
fight. Yeah.
He playing out dominated him. Amosov, the first round was pretty close. Uh, but Amosov didn't look like Amosov. I don't know if he showed up bad or if Jackson just made him look that bad, but he did not look like the fighter that he has been. And second round, he was getting picked apart and he started to fade. And then in the third round, you could tell he was clearly fading. And then Jackson started to put it on a bit. And then it was the most weird knockout. He hit him with an uppercut and then
Mm.
sprawled on top of him. And Amosov kind of just let him. Like, I don't even think Amosov was out. I just think he was hurt. But he
Yeah.
got hit with the uppercut and just sprawled on top of and didn't do anything about it and just laid there like face down. And then the ref stopped the fight because it looked like he was like all out. I'm not saying he wasn't out. I'm just saying I think Amosov was just more like gassed almost than he was like actually hurt. Like he was just done. He got beat up bad. And that was just
100%.
an incredible, unexpected performance out of Jason Jackson. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think most people had Jason Jackson finishing Amosov
No,
because he had won his past five or so by decision and hadn't really had a finish in years before this fight. So him going out there and finishing a 27-0 undefeated fighter, it's it's pretty incredible.
100%, man. Let's get into the PFL buyout. PFL purchases Bellator and announced the Bellator International Series. So that looks like they're taking Bellator on the road, which is
Yep.
great for Europeans like myself. Um, Obviously, I always say that more events should come to Germany, and you see the success of Octagon being
Okay.
here, and this. I mean, they're selling out 19,000 person arenas. If Bellator brings the right names, obviously their big German guy Daniel Weichel did retire.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of German talent they could definitely sign under the PFL banner as well. So they could take that show on the road. They've got European fighters. I mean, it would be very interesting to see how they manage it, but then also if they want to have these champions defend their belt, but then do the PFL versus Bellator champions event at the end of the year, like you got to wonder how stacked are they going to make these Bellator cards?
Mm-hmm. And the Bellator PFL Championship event is supposed to be end of the year. It's supposed to be beginning of the year.
Is it?
It's supposed to be March, April, they said.
See, I've been plan. See, so I was talking about coming to the event.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, that might be in January.
Yeah.
That's at the beginning of the year. I thought it was the end of the year,
Yeah, no,
like
they said it was
November,
gonna be
like
they said
with the
no,
PFL championships.
they said it was gonna be the beginning of the year. They're looking to do it like soon.
I wonder what they'll do
Yeah.
with the lightweight championship then, because Olivier Aubin Mercier is retired and Usman
And
Nurmagomedov is suspended.
I would assume, hey, maybe they do like Usman and Collard. That would be cool. Or
Usman
Shavli and
Collar would be cool.
Collard. Or Shavli and
Traveling,
Collard or something along those lines, maybe. I don't
yeah.
know. They'll
But then,
figure out they'll
then
figure out
again,
something.
two of Bellator's biggest stars won't be included then in Patchy Mix and I believe Johnny Eblen.
They'll defend their titles on the international series cards, I would assume. I think they
Right.
said that I think
If
they said
Patchy
that
Mix is defending his belt in Europe, I'm there.
I think they
100%.
said that there's 8 international series cards, 6 in Europe and 2 in the US. So
Okay.
I would assume that Eblin could go international again, potentially, if he would want to.
Yeah,
And
100.
and I mean, the fight there is potentially Aaron Jeffrey. So if it is, maybe they go to Canada for that. Potentially they go. That's
Maybe.
one of their international, maybe. And then for Patchy Mix, for Archuleta, maybe they go to Brazil.
Or does it's not Archuleta Spanish, isn't he?
Is he? I'm not
Okay.
sure. I thought he was. I thought he had a Brazilian background. I could be wrong.
I think you might have both. Okay, this is the most unjournalist thing, but I'm gonna have to Google it. So
But no, so the PFL Bellator champions are I think let's break down those fights real quick too.
yes.
The actual fights themselves. So at featherweight, you have Jesus Pinedo versus Patricio Pitbull, right?
Whew, that's a good one.
It's a great one, but I think this recent form of Pitbull, I don't know if he beats Pinedo.
Could give him trouble, man. Could give him trouble because Jesus
Pinedo's
Pinedo is
been on
good, man.
fire. He's been on fire, man. He's just been
Knocking
running
out
through
the two
everyone.
biggest PFL stars in Brendan Loughnane and Bubba Jenkins, and then
And
beating
then
Braga the
taking
way he did.
Braga's O.
He
He took his O.
broke Braga. He didn't necessarily knock him out, but he broke his will.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it was impressive. I would favor Pineda. In
Yeah.
current form, I would favor Pineda. At lightweight, like we just talked about, it's a little messy right now.
Mhm.
Let's just play the game. If it was Usman versus OAM, really interesting fight, really cool test for Usman. And I feel like OAM would give him problems, but I'd still have to favor Usman's youth and just
I
his
honestly can't pick a winner
striking.
in that fight. I'll be honest, I can't pick one.
It would be close. It would be really close. I think OAM would give him some real problems that people
He
wouldn't
would.
think. And then
Sure.
what's welterweight? Jason Jackson. You have Jason Jackson, and then
Versus
you have
Umalatov, isn't
Magomed Karamov.
my bad.
And that no, you're fine. And that fight is just, I mean, that fight is spectacular.
That's a
That
great
that 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 is a barn burner fight, especially with Jackson coming off, the biggest upset of the year in Bellator with Magomed Karamov beating Sadabusi, last year's champion, in the rematch. I mean, he solidified that he's just as good as he was when he joined the PFL 5 years ago, basically. So I really am interested in that fight, and I really couldn't tell you who I favor or who wins. I don't even know
No,
how that fight goes stylistically. I'd be
I mean,
very interested.
yeah.
Middleweight, like we said, Johnny Eblen gets left out. Maybe they get Derek Brunson to fight Eblen if it's not Aaron Jeffrey.
Johnny Eblen did call out Derek Brunson.
Yes, and Brunson said things about Johnny Eblen in return. So that's a fight they could be looking to make as well.
They
If
could.
they make
I mean, Brunson's kind of the new toy in the play box, right? Because
Yeah, it's interesting.
he gets a lot of attention on social media. He is a lot of fun to watch fight as well because
Mhm.
you never know with Derek Brunson because I mean, watch the Ray Cooper fight. He has Ray Cooper up on a single leg and gets caught with a left hand and drops.
I will
But
say, I think Eblen is a great. I mean, not Eblen. Sorry, Brunson is a great test for Eblen because we
yes,
were just talking about where we feel that Eblin might be as a UFC middleweight. Where was Brunson? He was ranked like 7, 8, I want to say
Yeah,
6 maybe before he left. So if he beats Brunson, depending on how he beats Brunson, it would really show us where Johnny Eblin stands in terms of best middleweights of the world. So
100%.
in terms of Aaron Jeffrey getting the fight, I think Aaron Jeffrey earned it and deserves it. But in terms of interest and stuff, it could be really interesting to see if Eblin can get past Brunson.
100%. Light heavyweight, Impa Kasanganai, which is one of the best stories of the year, going from the Challenger Series to $1 million cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've versus Vadim Nenkov. I mean,
And it's weird because Nemkov is now saying he wants to move up to heavyweight. So I have no clue if that will actually happen. But
Impa's a small light heavyweight too, man. So,
he
and
fought at
Nenkov is massive.
welterweight.
So,
I know it's not. I mean, I'll say it. It's not a good matchup for Impa. It's not a good fight for Impa. I mean, Nemkov is a lot bigger than him. Like he said, Nemkov's considering the move up to heavyweight, and Impa's fought at welterweight in the past. I mean,
yeah,
it's a ridiculous size difference in that fight. Impa's been able to negate the size difference of light heavyweights, obviously, but I don't think any of them have been on the level of Nemkov.
yeah.
And Nemkov is just so good. I mean, it would be a very rough fight for him, but I would prefer that Nemkov would move up to heavyweight, and it would potentially give us another interesting fight or something because Nemkov's already beat Bader. So if he wants to go and chase Bader, he could, but looks like Bader's going to take on Ferreira. So I don't know what the whole situation's going on with that, but Nemkov might be involved in this mix somehow.
So, I mean, if Nenkov doesn't take the fight, a guy I think could do really well against PFL light heavyweights, and I think
Mhm.
you know where I'm going with this, is Luke Trainer.
Interesting. Yeah. Luke
Luke
Trainer's
Trainer is, I
solid.
believe, the number 10 ranked guy in the Bellator division. He is so good. He's long. He's 6'7" at 205 pounds. That is ridiculous. I mean, I met him in Milan, and I've never felt shorter, but I could immediately recognize him. And I'm not a short person. Like, but I was walking down the hallway or down the what do you even call it? It was in an arena. I was walking back to my seat, and and I just spot him after. So he had just won versus via submission,
Okay.
and I just see him. He's walking down the thing with his girlfriend, and he recognizes me. And then I recognize him immediately. Well, I recognized him before, but he recognized me, and we just had a great conversation. Took a picture. Like such a nice guy, um, and a guy I think has been underrated for a while. He had the tough loss, but I mean, well, he beat Sullivan Colley. Um,
Yeah. Another good
that
prospect.
was supposed to fight very recently. I believe on was it the Dublin card? And his
I don't know.
opponent
I
failed his
think
medical
so.
test 48 hours
Uh,
out.
yes, it was the Dublin card. Yes, 299.
Yeah. That was unfortunate for him, but I think he could do very well. I would love to see. This is what I said when the crossover first announced, and I got asked, what fight would I most like to see? And I said Luke Trainer versus Josh Silveira. Um,
Interesting.
obviously, Silveira now lost to Kansaganai. Silveira versus Trainer is still an awesome fight. If you want like a nice little undercard showcase bout, like
Mhm.
it's a pretty good one to have.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that actually. That is a pretty solid fight. I'm not sure if it would happen. I'm not sure what the situation is because I think they said that about 50% of Bellator fighters will be coming over to the PFL format, and that 50% will stay on the Bellator International Series.
I would say Luke Trainer will probably go on the international series. Being English, he probably wants more hometown fights.
And but
Um,
I think the PFL fighters could fight on the Bellator International Series if they want as well. So that fight could still be a
they should
thing.
bring
I
the
mean,
PFL Global Series on the road as well.
there's a lot that can happen with this. They can explore a couple options. I mean, I
It's
just
very interesting because
I
both
just
promotions have very good ties in Europe.
I just think they have too much going on with the PFL right now. Though there's like 6 different things happening in terms of like
Well, they're
promotions in a
expanding
sense.
all over now
I
with
know
the
it's just crazy though because they have PFL, they have PFL Europe, they have the Challenger Series, they have what's it? They'll have Bellator, they'll have the Bellator International Series, and then like they have another thing too. Like there's just a lot going on there. They need to just shorten things up and kind of fix everything up and make it more understandable and
Make
more
it shiny.
yeah, yeah, basically make it shiny and make it so that it's easier to understand for a more casual fan. Because even I, as a journalist, am having troubles trying to find out exactly who is going to be fighting where.
Yeah. No,
So
it's not transparent enough, and that's what's
no.
frustrating to me, you know. Because you also got Francis Ngannou. Is he gonna fight in the PFL ever?
Oh, that's the other one, the Super Fight Series, the PFL Super Fight Series. That's the other one
Jake
I forgot
Paul
about.
is fighting this week, and no one
Yes.
gives a damn, and I'm so glad about it because I hate his boxing stuff. So I'm glad no one cares anymore. Um, him signing with the PFL, I was like, okay, it'd be interesting to see his high school wrestling.
Mhm.
I think it's just a money move.
Oh yeah, I think it might just be for like to promote them and stuff. I don't know if he'll ever actually fight there. I mean, they said that they offered Nate Diaz to fight, so I will say that they said that
Nate
they
Diaz is
offered Nate
never gonna
Diaz.
fight in the PFL. Never ever.
You can't blame the
He'll,
PFL
he'll
for
fight
that
in the
though.
UFC or his own promotion, Real
Yeah, but
Fighting.
you can't blame Jake Paul in the PFL for Nate
Oh
Diaz not
no,
coming
you
over
can't.
and fighting him.
It's
So
they
it
probably
seems
made
like
a pretty handsome offer as well.
it seems like Jake would under specific circumstances, but I don't know
If
if
it's a
he's
good
just
fight for him,
going
if
to.
it's a good fight for him, he'll take it.
Yeah.
He's as much as I'm not fond of him, he's not a dummy. Like
No, no, they're smart. Him and his team, they're smart. He has
him and
smart
his
people
team are
behind him.
smart. Even the
Yes.
boxer they're taking on this weekend is I think he's 11-1, but
Yeah.
nothing spectacular about him.
Mm-hmm. People have said it's like it's a right picked matchup. So we'll see.
It's a smart one, man.
Yeah.
PFL is an interesting spot. Bellator's an interesting spot as well. Sorry, I keep yawning. I'm tired.
It's okay.
But Bellator is in a fascinating spot. I've always been a person that's appreciated Bellator. Their fights are always very, very high quality.
Yeah.
Um, the people behind the scenes are great. You know, PFL is another one that is really, really good. So it's cool. In my time of being an MMA fan, I've never seen a promotion merge or combine.
I haven't
It's
either.
been since Strikeforce we haven't seen one happen, and it's gonna be a very fun time to be an MMA fan in 2024.
It
And if you're
is.
not an MMA fan, and maybe you're an old classmate of Pat or mine, like, and you just follow us on Instagram and you see this and you've made it 40 minutes through our rambling, like, you know, start watching fights.
Yeah, start watching PFL Bellator. Seriously,
PFL,
start watching all
Bellator,
of it.
UFC, Octagon. There's so many promotions out there.
If you
MMA
like
is an
MMA,
awesome spot.
you're going to like these other promotions. I mean,
You're
it's that simple.
you're spoiled for choice, man.
Yeah.
There's too much MMA on. I can't even
Mhm.
keep up anymore.
Yeah. One thing I will say though is I'm gonna miss Bellator, man. I'm gonna miss Bellator.
It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird. It's not
Yeah.
gonna be the same, and then it's
Not
gonna
at
be
all.
absorbed in. Tell you what, as much as people make fun of it, it's gonna be different without it, man. Um, it's gonna be weird, but I think, I mean, I think if we were journalists when Strikeforce was absorbed, we'd be saying the same thing, you know.
Hmm. Very
Um,
true. Very true.
so I think it's all interesting. I'm very excited for the 2024 PFL and Bellator and everything. And I just
Yeah,
wonder
me too.
where they're going to be putting the Champions event. Not necessarily time frame, but also where in the US, because that dictates whether I come out. If it's in New York, my grandma lives in Boston. If it's the end of the year, I would say what I'm hoping is October, November time. Oh man, I can't shake it.
I'm not saying it won't be. I'm just saying I think they said they were targeting March, April for it. They were
Targeting
targeting
March, April, but
later
I,
on.
I think it depends on fighters. You just had Pat
Oh yeah,
Mix
no. There's a
fighting, and
lot. There's a lot that depends. That's why I'm saying like
it's
it
a lot
could
of
be end of
champions, and
year.
you just had a grueling November event with all the champions on it. So are they all going to be ready? A lot of them do like time off after having a tough season. No, Shane Burgos is a guy that goes through war every time he fights. Like, I don't know, man.
I don't
MMA
either.
is in an awesome spot. The UFC is
It
interesting right
is.
now, obviously. This weekend coming up, Royval versus Pantoja and Covington versus Edwards. I will be rounding the year off with Jake Noaker,
Mhm.
uh, friend of ours. I'm very excited for that, man. But I appreciate you for joining me. Anything
Of
else you need to
course.
say? Shouting out anything? Here's your platform.
I mean, hey, just shout out Bellator for giving me the opportunity to grow in the MMA space and everything. I'm gonna miss Bellator, man. It was a
100%.
really it was a short ride, but it was a really sweet ride. I'll say that.
It's a
And
fun ride and fun.
hopefully, hopefully we'll see a lot of those guys, not just the fighters, but the people behind the scenes too, transition over to the PFL. I have
100%.
have I have heard that, a couple of the guys behind the scenes will be. So it's
Good.
good to hear. But I just hope that, everyone still has a job and everyone's still okay and things are, I hope things are similar to the way they used to be, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm
You
not
know,
ready for the change just yet.
yeah, yeah. I hope it's a slow process. I hope it's a slow change. If things just
Even with the
keep
fighters, I think as
drastically
well.
crazy. Yeah.
I think Bellator fighters are kind of like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, it's a shell shock. Yeah.
I think they've known for a while, but they haven't been allowed to speak about it, and now they're turning up to the PFL events. Like having Patchy Mix go to the PFL events when there's no one that he's going to fight is kind of weird.
You're telling me,
Uh,
man. You're telling me.
hey man, I'm excited. I'm sure I'll have you on again,
Yes.
probably start of the year. We'll see. But yeah, thank you for joining me, and
Of
have a good
course.
night, man.